Jack Morrison sat in the corner of the waiting room, trying to keep his hands from shaking. The recruitment center on Luna Station was filled with perfect beings from across the galaxy. Tall aliens with shimmering skin stood next to humans with metal arms and glowing eyes. Everyone looked strong and confident. Everyone except Jack. He filled out the form slowly, his pen moving across the paper with careful strokes. His left eye was cloudy from an old injury, making it hard to read the small print. The questions were simple enough. Name, age, military history, medical conditions? Jack answered them all truthfully, even the ones that made him look weak. The other recruits whispered about him. He could hear them even though they tried to be quiet. A group of enhanced humans with perfect bodies talked about the scarred man. In the corner, their words stung, but Jack was used to it. He had been hearing whispers for 3 years now, ever since he left the Marines. "Look at that one," said a woman with silver hair and bright blue cyber eyes. "His hands are shaking like a leaf. How did he even make it past the first screening?" Her companion, a man with arms that were clearly mechanical, shook his head. "Military pension cases, they let anyone apply these days? Feel sorry for the guy, but he doesn't belong here." Jack kept writing, pretending not to hear them. His military record was impressive on paper. 20 years in the Marines, including 3 tours in the Martian colonial wars, decorated for bravery, leadership, and tactical excellence. But that was before the breakdown. Before the doctors told him he was no longer fit for duty, Lieutenant Commander Kate Sullivan walked into the waiting room with a stack of files. She was the human liaison officer responsible for processing applications from Earth citizens. Her job was to make sure humans had fair representation in the Galactic Defense Force. It was not an easy job. Most alien species saw humans as primitive and unstable. Kate's eyes scanned the room and stopped on Jack. She had read his file 3 times already, and each time it made her feel sad. Here was a man who had given everything for his planet, only to be thrown away when he was no longer useful. His psychological evaluation was brutal. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety attacks, and severe social dysfunction. The medical reports painted a picture of a broken soldier barely holding on to sanity. She walked over to Jack's corner and sat down beside him. "Mr. Morrison? I'm Kate Sullivan. I'll be handling your application today." Jack looked up at her and she saw something in his eyes that surprised her. Despite all the reports about his mental state, his gaze was steady and intelligent. "Thank you, ma'am. I know this is probably a waste of time, but I had to try." His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. Kate noticed how he held himself, like he was trying to make himself smaller and less noticeable. It was a sharp contrast to the confident postures of the other applicants. "Tell me why you want to join the Galactic Defense Force," Kate said gently. Jack was quiet for a moment, staring at his hands. "I need purpose again. The war ended 3 years ago, and I've been drifting ever since. I know I'm not the man I used to be, but maybe I can still be useful somehow." Kate saw the genuine pain in his words. She had seen too many veterans struggle with the transition to civilian life. The lucky ones found new careers or started families. The unlucky ones ended up like Jack, damaged and forgotten. Commander Vex 9, the Zephyrian recruiter, approached their corner. His tall, insect-like form towered over the 2 humans. His compound eyes clicked as they focused on Jack's file. "This human is unsuitable for military service," Vex 9 said in his clicking voice. "His psychological profile indicates severe instability. His medical records show multiple disabilities. Why are we wasting resources on damaged goods?" Kate felt her anger rise, but she kept her voice calm. "Mr. Morrison is a decorated veteran with 20 years of experience. His record speaks for itself." "His record is from before his breakdown," Vex 9 replied coldly. "Look at him now. He can barely keep his hands steady. What use is a soldier who cannot hold a weapon?" Jack seemed to shrink further into his chair. The other alien recruiters had gathered around, drawn by the conversation. They all agreed with Vex 9, in a galaxy where genetic perfection and technological enhancement were the norm, Jack Morrison represented everything they saw as wrong with humanity. Perhaps we could find him a suitable support role, Kate suggested. Maintenance, logistics, something that would allow him to contribute without the stress of combat duties? The aliens exchanged glances. A few of them made sounds that Kate knew were laughter. The idea of giving a broken human any responsibility seemed absurd to them. The research vessel Meridian needs a maintenance technician, said Dr. Korath, a hegemony representative. It is a simple job that even a damaged human should be able to handle. He would be far from any combat zones and would have minimal interaction with the crew. It was clearly meant as an insult, but Kate saw an opportunity. That sounds perfect. Mr. Morrison, would you be interested in a position aboard the Meridian? Jake looked up at her with something that might have been hope. I would be honored, ma'am. I know I'm not much anymore, but I'm still good with my hands when they're not shaking. Kate approved his application on the spot, ignoring the disapproving sounds from the alien recruiters. She knew she was taking a risk, but something about Jack Morrison made her want to give him a chance. As Jack signed his final papers, his pen moved across the page with surprising steadiness. Kate noticed it, but dismissed it as a moment of calm in his otherwise shaky condition. She didn't see the way his cloudy eye tracked the movement of everyone in the room, or how his supposedly damaged hearing picked up conversations from across the space. Thank you, Jack said as he handed back the papers. I know you didn't have to do this. Everyone deserves a second chance, Kate replied. I hope you find what you're looking for on the Meridian. Jack nodded and stood up slowly, favoring his left leg. He walked toward the exit with the careful gait of someone who had learned to live with pain. The other recruits watched him go, some with pity, others with disgust. None of them suspected that they had just witnessed one of the finest performances of Jack Morrison's life. As the door closed behind him, Jack allowed himself a small smile. Phase 1 was complete. He had successfully convinced everyone that he was exactly what his file said he was, a broken soldier desperate for purpose. The Meridian assignment was perfect. A research vessel with a mixed crew, conducting classified work in sensitive areas. It was exactly the kind of position the Terran Shadow Network had been trying to place an agent in for months. Kate Sullivan had no idea that her act of kindness had just given one of humanity's most dangerous weapons access to some of the galaxy's most closely guarded secrets. Jack Morrison walked through the corridors of Luna Station, playing the part of the damaged veteran perfectly. His slight limp was real, a souvenir from the siege of New Olympia. His cloudy eye was real too, damaged by shrapnel from the same battle, but the shaking hands, the nervous behavior, the apparent weakness, that was all carefully crafted theater. Jack Morrison was broken, but he had been rebuilt into something far more dangerous than anyone imagined. The Prometheus Protocol had seen to that. As he boarded the transport that would take him to the Meridian, Jack Morrison began the next phase of his mission. He would be the perfect maintenance worker, invisible and harmless. And while the galaxy's greatest minds focused on their important research, he would be watching, learning, and preparing for the day when humanity would need him to stop pretending to be weak. Jack Morrison had been aboard the Meridian for 3 months, and he had become invisible. The crew barely noticed him as he moved through the corridors, carrying his toolbox and fixing broken systems. They saw him as the ship's broken human, someone to be pitied or ignored. The morning started like all the others. Jack shuffled down the main corridor, his left leg dragging slightly behind him. His tool bag clinked with each step, and he kept his head down to avoid eye contact. The crew members who passed him either looked away or stared with uncomfortable expressions. Dr. Ryan Brooks, the ship's humans and archaeologist, was talking to Dr. Lisa Chun near the observation deck. Jack could hear their conversation as he pretended to check a wall panel nearby. I hate having him here, Ryan said quietly. Every time the aliens see him stumbling around, it makes all of us look bad. We're trying to prove that humans belong in the galactic community, and then we have Morrison making us look like damaged goods. Lisa nodded in agreement. The other species already think we're primitive. Having a broken-down Marine shuffling around doesn't help our cause. Yesterday I saw Commander Vex-9 watching him struggle with a simple repair job. The way he looked, at Morrison, then at me. It was like he was judging all of humanity. Jack continued his work, his hands moving slowly across the control panel. He made sure to fumble with the tools, dropping a wrench that clattered loudly on the floor. Both doctors turned to look at him with embarrassment. "Sorry," Jack mumbled, picking up the wrench with shaking hands. "I'll try to be more careful." Ryan and Lisa exchanged a look and walked away quickly. Jack waited until they were gone before allowing himself a small smile. The performance was working perfectly. Everyone saw exactly what they expected to see. In the ship's science lab, Dr. Zelani was conducting her daily observations. The Corthery scientist found human behavior fascinating, and Jack had become one of her favorite subjects. She watched him through the security monitors as he worked, taking notes on her tablet. Subject Morrison continues to display symptoms of severe psychological trauma, she dictated to her recording device. His motor functions remain impaired and his social interactions are minimal. He appears to be a perfect example of how warfare can diminish human potential. Dr. Zelani had written 3 papers about Jack's condition, using him as evidence that humans were too emotionally fragile for military service. Her research was popular among the hegemony observers who used it to argue against human advancement in the galactic hierarchy. Jack knew about the papers, of course. His enhanced hearing allowed him to monitor most conversations on the ship. He had even read Dr. Zelani's reports when she left her tablet unattended. The description of him as a damaged specimen had been particularly amusing. The afternoon brought a new challenge. Captain Rodriguez had assigned Jack to help with some maintenance in the engine room. The job required working alongside Chief Engineer Paul Martinez, one of the few crew members who treated Jack with basic respect. "How are you holding up, Morrison?" Paul asked as they worked on a coolant line. "I know it's not easy being the odd man out." Jack looked up from his work, his cloudy eye making it hard to focus. "I'm managing, sir. Just grateful to have a job. Been hard to find work since I left the service." Paul nodded sympathetically. "I had an uncle who served in the border wars. He came back different, too. Never talked about what he saw out there. But you could see it in his eyes. Same look you have sometimes." Jack's hands trembled slightly as he tightened a connection. "Some things are better left buried, sir. I try not to think about the war anymore." "That's probably wise," Paul said. "Focus on the here and now. You're doing good work, even if the others don't appreciate it." As they worked, Jack noticed something that made his enhanced senses alert. The engine readings were slightly off, showing micro fluctuations that shouldn't be there. It was subtle, something that would be missed by normal maintenance checks. But Jack's modifications allowed him to detect patterns that others couldn't see. He filed the information away for later analysis. During his 3 months aboard the Meridian, he had been quietly mapping the ship's systems, documenting every component and connection. To anyone watching, it looked like routine maintenance work. In reality, he was building a complete blueprint of the vessel's capabilities. That evening, Jack sat alone in the crew mess hall, eating his dinner while the other crew members gathered at tables on the far side of the room. The separation was deliberate. No one wanted to sit with the broken human, who might have a panic attack or start talking about the war. Commander Vex-9 entered the mess hall with several other alien officers. They chose a table that gave them a clear view of Jack, and their conversation quickly turned to him. "The human continues to perform adequately," Vex-9 said in his clicking voice, "though his efficiency remains far below acceptable standards for his species. I estimate he completes tasks at roughly 60% of normal human capability." "It is unfortunate but expected," replied Dr. Korath, the hegemony observer. "Humans who experience combat trauma often suffer permanent cognitive damage. Morrison is a prime example of why his species should not be trusted with important responsibilities." Jack ate his food slowly, appearing to ignore the conversation. But his enhanced hearing caught every word, and his modified brain processed the implications. The aliens were using him as proof that humans were fundamentally flawed. It was exactly what the Terran Shadow Network wanted them to believe. After dinner, Jack returned to his quarters, a small cabin in the ship's lower levels. The room was basic, with just a bunk, a small desk, and a storage locker. To any observer, it looked like the quarters of a low-ranking maintenance worker. But Jack had made subtle modifications that weren't visible to casual inspection. He sat at his desk and opened what appeared to be a personal journal. The pages were filled with shaky handwriting that told the story of a damaged soldier trying to cope with his new life. Anyone reading it would see the rambling thoughts of a man struggling with trauma and depression, but the journal was more than it seemed. Hidden within the seemingly random text were coded messages, technical specifications, and intelligence reports. Jack was documenting everything he learned about the Meridian and its crew, preparing detailed profiles of each member and their capabilities. His work was interrupted by a soft chime from his door. He quickly closed the journal and limped over. To answer it, Dr. Lisa Chun stood in the corridor, holding a medical scanner. "Sorry to bother you, Morrison," she said. "I'm doing routine health checks on all crew members." "Mind if I come in?" Jack stepped aside to let her enter. "Of course, Doc. Is everything okay?" "It's just standard procedure," Lisa replied, running her scanner over Jack's body. The device showed the expected readings for a damaged human, old injuries, stress indicators, and the telltale signs of combat trauma. What it didn't show were the microscopic enhancements hidden throughout his body. "Your stress levels are elevated," Lisa noted. "Are you sleeping well?" "Sometimes the nightmares come back," Jack said quietly. "But I'm managing." Lisa made a note on her tablet. "I can prescribe something to help with that. And Morrison, if you ever need to talk to someone, my door is always open." Jack nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Doc. That means a lot." After Lisa left, Jack returned to his desk and reopened his journal. He added a new entry about the medical scan, noting that his biological camouflage remained effective. The Prometheus protocol had been designed to fool even advanced medical equipment, and it was working perfectly. Outside his small porthole, the stars wheeled past as the Meridian continued its journey through space. The ship was carrying the galaxy's finest scientific minds on a mission of discovery, but none of them suspected that their most dangerous passenger was the quiet man who fixed their broken equipment. Jack Morrison closed his journal and prepared for sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to gather intelligence while maintaining his cover. The crew thought he was broken, but they had no idea what he was really hiding. In the depths of space, surrounded by beings who saw him as weak and damaged, Jack Morrison was exactly where he needed to be. The Meridian received new orders on a Tuesday morning. Captain Rodriguez called all senior staff to the briefing room, leaving Jack to continue his maintenance work in the lower decks. Through the ship's communication system, he could hear fragments of their conversation. "The forbidden sectors," Dr. Ryan Brooks said with excitement in his voice. "We're actually going to explore the Kethver system. The archaeological potential is incredible." Jack paused in his work, his enhanced hearing focusing on the briefing room. The forbidden sectors were dangerous territory, filled with ancient ruins and automated defense systems. 3 previous expeditions had been lost there, their ships found as drifting hulks with no survivors. "The Defense Council believes there's an ancient weapons cache hidden on the 3rd planet," Captain Rodriguez explained. "Our job is to locate it and determine if the technology can be safely recovered." Commander Vexnine clicked his mandibles nervously. The previous expeditions were well-equipped and experienced. "What makes the Council think we will succeed where they failed?" "Advanced scanning technology," Dr. Zolani replied. "We can detect the defense systems before they activate. With proper preparation, we should be able to navigate the dangers safely." Jack continued his work, but his mind was analyzing everything he heard. The weapons cache was real, but it wasn't what they thought it was. According to classified intelligence from the Terran Shadow Network, the site was actually a testing ground created by an unknown alien species. The ancient defenses were designed to evaluate the combat capabilities of anyone who tried to claim the cache. Over the next week, Jack watched the crew prepare for their mission. The scientists were excited about the potential discoveries, while the military personnel focused on the tactical challenges. Everyone was confident in their advanced equipment and careful planning. Jack maintained his usual routine, fixing broken systems and staying out of everyone's way. But he was also making his own preparations. His enhanced vision allowed him to read classified documents from across the room, and his modified memory stored every detail of the expedition plans. The ship's route would take them through several dangerous sectors before reaching the HFY system. Jack noted the timing and coordinates, transmitting coded updates to the Shadow network through hidden communication channels. His handlers needed to know about this mission, though they couldn't intervene directly without revealing the network's existence. Dr. Lisa Shun noticed Jack's behavior becoming more erratic as they approached the forbidden sectors. His hands shook more than usual, and he seemed to zone out during conversations. She assumed the stress of traveling through dangerous space was triggering his war trauma. Morrison seems to be having a hard time, she mentioned to Dr. Ryan Brooks. Maybe we should consider sedating him for the duration of the mission. Good idea, Ryan agreed. The last thing we need is him having a panic attack during a critical moment. Jack overheard their conversation and allowed himself to appear even more unstable. He stumbled while carrying his tools, dropped equipment, and seemed to have trouble following simple instructions. The crew began treating him like fragile cargo that needed to be handled carefully. The Meridian dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the HFY system. The third planet hung in the view screen like a brown and gray marble, its surface scarred by ancient battles. Long-range sensors detected the massive structures buried beneath the planet's crust, along with the energy signatures of the defense systems. Fascinating, Dr. Zelani said as she studied the readings. The power sources are still active after thousands of years. The technology must be incredibly advanced. Jack looked at the sensor data and saw what the others missed. The energy patterns weren't random. They were following a specific sequence, like a computer program running through its instructions. The defense systems weren't just protecting the cache. They were waiting for someone to test. The expedition team prepared to descend to the planet's surface. Dr. Brooks would lead the archaeological team, while Commander Vex-9 handled military security. Dr. Zelani would coordinate the scientific analysis, and several other specialists would provide support. Jack was assigned to remain aboard the ship with a skeleton crew. Captain Rodriguez, Chief Engineer Paul Martinez, and a few other essential personnel would monitor the mission from orbit. It was standard procedure: keep the non-essential crew members safe while the specialists did their work. As the landing shuttles departed, Jack continued his maintenance duties. He appeared to be focused on routine repairs, but his enhanced senses were tracking every aspect of the mission. The shuttles reached the planet's surface without incident, and the team began setting up their base camp near the entrance to the underground complex. For the first few hours, everything went according to plan. The team made good progress mapping the outer defenses and identifying safe routes through the ruins. Their advanced equipment detected the automated systems and helped them avoid the most dangerous areas, but Jack knew it was too easy. The defense systems were learning, adapting to the team's methods and equipment. Each successful bypass taught the ancient machines more about their opponent's capabilities. The first sign of trouble came when Dr. Brooks' team lost communication with one of their advanced scouts. The soldier had been exploring a side passage. When his signal simply vanished, the team assumed it was equipment failure and continued their work. Jack watched the mission status displays with growing concern. The patterns he was seeing matched intelligence reports from the previous expeditions. The defense systems were following a predictable sequence, allowing the intruders to penetrate deeper into the complex before revealing their true capabilities. "Captain," Jack said quietly, approaching Captain Rodriguez at the command station, "I think there might be a problem with the mission." Rodriguez looked at him with surprise. Jack rarely spoke unless spoken to, and his voice sounded different somehow, more focused and alert than usual. "What kind of problem, Morrison?" Jack pointed at the tactical display with a hand that wasn't shaking. The defense patterns down there. They're not random. They're following a sequence, like they're testing the team's responses. Rodriguez studied the display more carefully. I'm not seeing what you're seeing. The systems seem to be operating normally, considering their age. With respect, sir, Jack said, I've seen similar patterns before. During the war, we encountered automated defense systems that were designed to evaluate enemy capabilities. They would let you get close, learn your methods, then adapt their responses accordingly. Before Rodriguez could respond, alarms began, sounding throughout the ship. The surface team was under attack. The defense systems had suddenly become much more aggressive, targeting the expedition with weapons that seemed to counter their every defensive measure. All teams, fall back to the shuttles, Rodriguez ordered over the communication system. Repeat, all teams withdraw immediately, but the retreat was already too late. The defense systems had learned enough about the team's capabilities to effectively counter their escape attempts. The shuttles were under attack, their shields failing against weapons that seemed to adapt to their defensive frequencies. Jack watched the tactical display with growing urgency. The expedition team was trapped on the surface, facing defenses that were systematically dismantling their technology. Several team members had already been killed, and the survivors were running out of options. Captain, Jack said, his voice carrying an authority that made Rodriguez look at him sharply. I need access to the weapon systems. Rodriguez stared at him in confusion. Morrison, you're a maintenance technician. You don't have training on combat systems. I know, Jack replied, his cloudy eye focusing with sudden intensity. But I'm the only one left with military experience. Everyone else is either on the planet or essential to ship operations. You need someone who can handle weapons even if they're not perfect. Rodriguez hesitated. Jack Morrison was damaged goods, barely capable of simple repairs. But the alternative was watching the entire expedition team die while they waited for reinforcements that wouldn't arrive in time. Morrison, I need you to understand something, Rodriguez said seriously. If you take control of those weapons, you'll be responsible for the lives of everyone on that planet. Can you handle that kind of pressure? Jack's response was quiet but steady. I can try, sir. I know I'm not the man I used to be, but maybe I can still be useful. Rodriguez made his decision. The weapons console is yours, Morrison. Do whatever you can to help them. Jack moved toward the weapons station, his movements still showing his characteristic limp. But as his hands reached for the controls, something changed. The trembling stopped. The uncertainty vanished. For the first time in months, Jack Morrison looked like the Marine he had once been. All hands, Jack said into the communication system, his voice cutting through the chaos with crisp authority. This is Morrison. I'm taking tactical control of the rescue operation. Follow my instructions exactly or everyone dies. Captain. Rodriguez stared at the transformation in shock. The broken maintenance worker was gone, replaced by someone who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Jack's hands moved across the weapons controls with fluid precision. Jack Morrison's hands moved across the weapons console like he had been born to use it. The shaking was completely gone. His cloudy eyes suddenly focused with laser precision, tracking multiple targets on the display screens. Every movement was smooth and confident, like a predator that had finally stopped hiding. The transformation was so complete that the bridge crew stopped what they were doing and stared. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez dropped his tablet, his mouth hanging open in shock. This was not the same broken man who had been stumbling around the ship for 3 months. Morrison, what the hell? Captain Rodriguez whispered, but Jack was already working. All surface teams, this is Meridian Control, Jack said into the communication system. His voice carried absolute authority now, the voice of someone who had commanded troops in life-or-death situations. I have tactical oversight of your extraction. Follow my instructions exactly and do not deviate. On the planet below, Dr. Ryan Brooks was crouched behind a fallen pillar, his archaeological team scattered and pinned down by weapons fire. Who is this? Morrison is just a maintenance worker. Shut up and listen, Jack replied curtly. Team. Alpha, move to coordinates 472215 in exactly 30 seconds. Team Beta, maintain suppressing fire on the eastern positions until I give the all clear. Team Gamma, prepare to evacuate wounded through the southern corridor. Jack's fingers danced across the weapons controls, targeting the planet's defense. Systems with surgical precision? The Meridian's weapons, which the crew had always considered adequate, suddenly performed with deadly efficiency. Each shot Jack fired disabled a defense turret with minimal energy expenditure. Conserving power for the extended rescue operation. Dr. Lisa Shun watched from her monitoring station in amazement. Her medical scanners were trained on Jack, and what she saw made no sense. His brain activity is off the charts, she said in wonder. His neural patterns are beyond anything I've ever recorded from a human. On her screen, Jack's brain showed activity levels that should have been impossible. There were patterns that didn't match normal human thought processes, synthetic components working alongside organic tissue. There are quantum processors in his head, she whispered. His entire nervous system has been enhanced. Jack continued coordinating the rescue while simultaneously running complex calculations in his head. He was tracking the movement patterns of dozens of defense systems, predicting their responses and countering them before they could adapt. The ancient weapons that had destroyed 3 previous expeditions were being systematically dismantled by a man they thought was barely functional. Team Alpha, incoming fire from your 6 o'clock, Jack warned. A split second later, he destroyed the turret that would have killed Dr. Brooks. Continue to extraction point Charlie. You have a 15-second window. Commander Vex9, who was leading the military security team, found himself following orders from someone he had dismissed as worthless. How is he doing this? How does he know where we are and what we're facing? Jack's enhanced vision was processing data from multiple sensors simultaneously. His modified brain was running tactical programs that allowed him to see the battlefield in 3 dimensions, tracking every team member and every threat in real time. Because I can see everything, Jack replied to Vex9's question. Now, move to position Delta 7 and cover the medical team's withdrawal. Captain Rodriguez finally found his voice. Morrison, I need an explanation. What the hell is happening here? Jack's hands never stopped moving as he continued the rescue operation. The explanation will have to wait, Captain. Right now, I have 17 people to extract from a kill zone designed by one of the most advanced civilizations in galactic history. The rescue unfolded with military precision that seemed impossible for a single operator. Jack didn't just save the surface teams. He was dismantling the entire defensive network, exposing the true nature of the ancient site. The ruins weren't protecting a weapons cache. They were a testing ground designed to evaluate the combat capabilities of different species. The whole mission was a setup, Jack said as he destroyed another series of defense positions. This isn't an archaeological site. It's a hegemony testing facility disguised as ancient ruins. They've been using it to measure the military potential of younger species. Dr. Zilani, who was helping coordinate the evacuation, heard Jack's words with growing horror. That's impossible. Our dating methods confirm these structures are thousands of years old. Your dating methods were fooled by artificial aging techniques, Jack replied. The hegemony has been running these tests for decades, determining which species pose a threat to their dominance. Every expedition that came here was evaluated and cataloged. The truth hit the crew like a physical blow. They hadn't been chosen for this mission because of their scientific expertise. They had been selected as test subjects, their capabilities measured and recorded for future use against humanity and its allies. Jack's rescue operation reached its climax as the last shuttle lifted off from the planet's surface. All surviving team members were aboard, though several had been wounded in the fighting. The defensive systems, now revealed as hegemony technology, powered down as their evaluation protocols completed. All teams extracted successfully. Jack reported 17 survivors, 3 wounded but stable. Mission parameters achieved. As the shuttles docked with the Meridian, the crew gradually realized the magnitude of what they had witnessed. Jack Morrison, the broken Marine they had pitied and ignored, had just conducted one of the most successful rescue operations in recent military history. Dr. Ryan Brooks was the first to confront Jack as he finally stepped away from the weapons console. "Who are you really? Because you're sure as hell not the man we thought you were." Jack turned to face the crew, and for the first time in months, he wasn't hiding his true nature. His posture was straight, his movements precise, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. The transformation was so complete that several crew members didn't recognize him as the same person who had been cleaning their waste systems just hours before. "My name is Jack Morrison," he said calmly, "but I'm not the broken soldier you think I am. I'm part of something called the Terran Shadow Network, humans who have been placed throughout the galaxy as intelligence assets." Captain Rodriguez felt the world shifting beneath his feet. "Intelligence assets? You mean spies?" "More than that," Jack replied. "We're humans who have been enhanced and trained for deep cover operations. My psychological profile, my medical records, my apparent disabilities, they're all real. I experienced genuine trauma, real injuries, actual breakdown. But instead of being discarded, I was rebuilt." Dr. Lisa Chun stared at her medical readings in disbelief. "The enhancement technology in your body? It's beyond anything we have access to. How is this possible?" Jack's smile was cold as winter. "On Earth, the Prometheus Protocol doesn't just create super soldiers, Doctor. It creates human weapons that no one sees coming. We take volunteers who have already been broken by war, people whose psychological profiles make them appear non-threatening. Then we rebuild them into something that can hide in plain sight." The implications were staggering. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. "How many of you are there? How many broken humans are actually enhanced operatives?" Jack gestured toward the main display, which still showed the tactical information. "From the rescue operation, more than you might think. Maintenance workers, clerks, low-level technicians scattered across known space. All of us hiding our true capabilities while monitoring galactic activities." Commander Vex9 clicked his mandibles nervously. "This is why humans consistently score low on combat evaluations. You're deliberately underperforming to maintain cover." "Exactly," Jack confirmed. "While other species compete openly for power and resources, humanity has been quietly building a network of influence that spans the galaxy. We learned long ago that in a hostile universe, the best way to survive is to be underestimated." The revelation sent shockwaves through the crew. They had been living alongside one of humanity's most dangerous weapons for months, never suspecting that their broken colleague was actually a precisely engineered intelligence operative. Captain Rodriguez processed the implications with growing unease. "The hegemony test? You knew about it from the beginning?" Jack nodded. "The Shadow Network has been monitoring their activities for years. They've been systematically evaluating younger species, determining which ones might threaten their dominance. Humans consistently score too low to be considered dangerous. That's exactly where we want to be." As the Meridian began its journey back to civilized space, the crew struggled to understand the new reality. The man they had dismissed as broken was actually part of a vast conspiracy that challenged everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. Jack Morrison stood in the Meridian's briefing room, no longer bothering to hide who he really was. His back was straight, his movements precise, and his voice carried the confidence of someone who had never truly been broken. The crew sat around the table in stunned silence, trying to understand how completely they had been fooled. "I know you have questions," Jack began, his enhanced eye interfacing directly with the ship's holographic display system. "I'll answer what I can, but some information must remain classified for the safety of the network." The holographic display came to life, showing a map of known space filled with thousands of points of light. Each point represented a human asset hidden throughout the galaxy, disguised as ordinary workers, clerks, and maintenance personnel. Dr. Ryan Brooks leaned forward, his face pale with shock. "How many of you are there?" "More than you might expect," Jack replied. "The Terran Shadow Network has been operating for over 30 years. We have assets in every major star system, on every important space station, within every significant organization. Maintenance workers who can access any computer system. Clerks who process classified documents. Low-level technicians who repair the galaxy's most sensitive equipment. Captain Rodriguez studied the display with growing amazement. All of them enhanced like you. Not all, Jack said. Some are purely intelligence operatives with standard training. Others have different types of enhancements suited to their specific roles. But yes, many of us have been through the Prometheus protocol. We're designed to be invisible, unremarkable, and completely underestimated. Dr. Lisa Chun was still processing the medical scans she had taken of Jack over the past months. But your psychological profile, your medical records, they showed genuine trauma, real injuries. How is that possible if you're an enhanced operative? Jack's expression grew more serious. Because the trauma was real, Doctor. Every agent in the Shadow Network is a volunteer who genuinely experienced psychological breakdown. The military didn't create us. They rebuilt us from people who were already broken. He paused, allowing the implications to sink in. I really did serve 20 years in the Marines. I really was injured in the siege of New Olympia. I really did suffer a complete psychological breakdown after the war ended. The difference is that instead of being discarded, I was offered a choice. The room was silent as Jack continued. The Prometheus protocol takes volunteers who have already been destroyed by war and rebuilds them into something new. We keep our memories, our pain, our genuine psychological scars. But we also receive enhancements that make us far more capable than we appear. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez shook his head in disbelief. So, every time I felt sorry for you, every time I thought you were struggling with your disabilities. I was struggling, Jack interrupted. The emotional damage is real. The nightmares, the anxiety, the social difficulties, those aren't fake. The protocol doesn't erase our trauma. It just gives us the tools to function despite it while serving a greater purpose. Commander Vex-9 clicked his mandibles nervously. This explains why human combat evaluations are always so low. Your entire species has been systematically deceiving the galactic community? Not the entire species, Jack corrected. Most humans have no idea the Shadow Network exists. But yes, we've been working to ensure that humanity is consistently underestimated. It's the only way a young species can survive in a galaxy dominated by ancient powers. Dr. Zilani, the Core 3 scientist, was reviewing all her research on human psychology with new understanding. My papers about human weakness, about psychological fragility, they were all based on studying you. And those papers have been very useful, Jack said with a slight smile. They've helped convince the hegemony and other powers that humans pose no threat. Your research has been cited in dozens of strategic assessments that conclude humanity is too emotionally unstable for advanced military roles. The implications were staggering. Dr. Ryan Brooks realized that everything he thought he knew about human-alien relations was wrong. How long has this been going on? How long has humanity been playing this game? Jack interfaced with the ship's computer again, bringing up historical data. The Shadow Network was established shortly after first contact with the galactic community. Our leaders quickly realized that being seen as weak and primitive was actually an advantage. While other species fought openly for territory and resources, we could build influence quietly and safely. The display showed the progression of human expansion throughout the galaxy. What appeared to be slow, cautious growth was actually a carefully orchestrated infiltration operation. Every human colony, every trade agreement, every diplomatic mission had been designed to place Shadow Network assets in strategic positions. The hegemony testing facility you just experienced, Jack continued, was one of many sites where they evaluate the combat potential of younger species. Species that score too high on their test tend to face mysterious accidents, economic sanctions, or outright military intervention. Humanity has deliberately failed these tests for decades. Captain Rodriguez felt a chill as he understood the full scope of the deception. The entire galactic community thinks we're weak and primitive, but we're actually one of the most dangerous species in known space. Potentially, Jack agreed. But we're dangerous in ways that others don't recognize. We don't build massive fleets or develop obvious superweapons. Instead, we place our people where they can monitor, influence, and if necessary, sabotage the activities of our potential enemies. Dr. Lisa Chung was still struggling with the medical implications. The enhancement technology you carry, it's beyond anything humanity is supposed to have access to. Where did it come from? Jack's expression became carefully neutral. That information is classified above my clearance level. I can tell you that the technology exists and that it works. The details of its origin are known only to the highest levels of the Shadow Network command structure. The crew sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of what they had learned. Everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy had been turned upside down. The weak, emotional species that barely deserved galactic citizenship was actually playing a game that spanned decades and involved thousands of hidden operatives. What happens now? Chief Engineer Paul Martinez finally asked, "Do we report this? Do we pretend we never found out?" Jack considered the question carefully. That depends on several factors. The Shadow Network has protocols for situations like this, but each case is evaluated individually. You've all proven yourselves to be capable and trustworthy people. The question is whether you can handle the responsibility that comes with this knowledge. He stood up and walked to the viewports, looking out at the stars. The galaxy is more dangerous than most people realize. The hegemony and other ancient powers have been manipulating younger species for millennia. They've destroyed civilizations that became too advanced or too independent. Humanity's survival depends on being overlooked and underestimated. Commander. Vex-9 spoke up, his voice uncertain. Are you saying that everything we know about galactic politics is a lie? Not a lie, Jack replied, but certainly incomplete. The official version of galactic history leaves out a lot of uncomfortable truths about how the current power structure was established and maintained. As the Meridian continued its journey back to Luna Station, Jack began preparing for his return to deep cover. The crisis was over, and he needed to resume his role as the broken maintenance worker. But first, he had to ensure that his crew understood the importance of keeping his secret. "I'm going to return to my cover identity," he told them. "To everyone else, I'll still be the damaged Marine who got lucky during a crisis. Your official reports will reflect that version of events. The true nature of what happened here will be classified at the highest levels." Dr. Ryan Brooks looked confused, but why continue the charade? Why not reveal what humanity is really capable of? Jack turned back to face the crew, his expression serious. Because the moment we stop appearing weak, we become a target. And if that happens, the Shadow Network will be the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. In the weeks that followed, Jack Morrison returned to his role as the ship's broken maintenance worker. His hands shook again when people were watching. His cloudy eyes seemed to have trouble focusing. He stumbled through his duties with apparent difficulty, just as he had before, but now his crew understood the truth. They saw the careful performance for what it was, the greatest magic trick in galactic history. An entire species hiding in plain sight, appearing weak while building the infrastructure for its own protection. Kate Sullivan, the liaison officer who had first approved Jack's application, received a coded message when the Meridian returned to Luna Station. Across the galaxy, other Shadow Network operatives were receiving similar communications. The network was expanding, new assets were being activated, and humanity's secret war for survival continued. Jack Morrison walked through the corridors of Luna Station, his toolbox clanking with each limping step. Other beings saw exactly what they expected to see: a broken human barely worthy of notice. None of them suspected that they had just passed one of the most dangerous individuals in known space. The galaxy thought it knew humanity's Lee.